Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling something that I know a lot of you are super curious about, and that's using the glycemic index and the glycemic load to help manage blood sugar.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We've got a great article here from Nutriz called Understanding GI and GL, The Secret to Balanced Blood Sugar.
Awesome.
And it seems like a lot of you listening are already pretty familiar with the basics. So we're going to skip ahead and dive into some of the nuances that maybe you haven't thought about before.
You got it.
So we all know GI measures how quickly those carbs raise your blood sugar, right? But the article actually talks about how not all fiber is created equal.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So can you break that down for us a bit?
Yeah, so you've got soluble fiber. That's the type you find in things like oats and beans. And what it does is it actually dissolves in water and then forms kind of like this gel-like substance. And that happens in your gut, which is really cool. That slows down digestion and the absorption of sugars. So what you end up with is a much more gradual rise in blood sugar. It's like putting a speed bump on that carb highway.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that means then a bowl of oatmeal with some berries would be a better choice than, let's say, like white toast with jam, even though both of those things have carbs?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because of that soluble fiber in the oatmeal is going to have a lower GI, whereas the white bread, that's mostly refined grains and it doesn't have a ton of fiber.
So then when I'm at the grocery store looking at labels, should I be paying attention to the types of fiber that are actually listed there?
Yeah, I think that's a great habit to get into. Keep an eye out for things that are high in that soluble fiber, but don't totally discount insoluble fiber. Like that's what you find in like whole wheat bread or brown rice.
Yeah.
While it's not going to, directly impact your blood sugar the same way, it's still really important for good digestion. Keeps things moving, so to speak.
Yeah, they're kind of a dynamic duo then. Soluble fiber is like blood sugar control. Insoluble fiber keeps things running nice and smooth.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, I know you mentioned refined grains earlier and how they don't have a lot of fiber.
Yeah.
But the article actually brings up something called resistant starch, which is super interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So resistant starch, that's a type of starch that your small intestine has a hard time digesting, almost like fiber.
Oh,
Kind of acts like fiber.
so where would we find this resistant starch? What kind of foods?
So you can find it in like cooked and cool potatoes, also green bananas
Oh.
and legumes. Like the cooling process actually changes the starch, makes it more resistant.
It's like potato salad.
Yeah, like potato salad. You got it.
Okay.
But I mean, of course, you got to consider the other stuff that's in that salad, right? Like if it's a mayo-heavy potato salad, it might not be so great.
Balance, right?
It's all about balance, exactly.
Now, I've heard that our gut microbiome, all those trillions of bacteria in our intestines, that they play a role in how we digest carbohydrates as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff. It's actually a huge area of research right now. Our gut microbiome, it's super diverse, and some bacteria are much better at breaking down specific types of fiber than others. And having a good balance of those good bacteria, well, that can really help regulate blood sugar levels.
So taking good care of our gut health is almost like giving ourselves a little boost with our blood sugar management, too.
You can definitely say that. Yeah, there's still a lot to learn, but we know prebiotics, which are basically types of fiber that feed the good bacteria, they can have a really positive impact.
Okay, so this means if we want steady blood sugar levels, it's not just about looking at the GI of a food, but also thinking about the different types of fiber it has and how that might be playing with our gut microbiome. A lot to think about.
Yeah, for sure. It's about seeing the bigger picture, not just focusing on one tiny little thing.
And I think that's what makes this so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all interconnected. It's
Yeah.
not just this one number.
Right.
It's all these different components working together.
You got it.
So now I'm curious, what about people who really love high GI foods? Do they have to avoid those completely, or are there ways to kind of work those into a balanced diet?
No, I don't think they're always totally off the menu. There are ways you can incorporate them and still have a balanced diet. It's all about strategy. Like if you pair a high GI food with some protein and healthy fats, you can actually slow down digestion and kind of lessen that blood sugar spike.
So if I were to have a piece of fruit, which might be high GI, I could pair it with some nuts or maybe some nut butter.
Exactly. That protein and fat in the nuts will help slow down how quickly that sugar gets absorbed from the fruit.
So there are ways to kind of work around it and be strategic about it.
Cool.
What are some other examples of how we can strategically enjoy those high GI foods?
Yeah, well, another tip is to just pay attention to how much you're eating. Even if it's a high GI food, if you keep the portion size smaller, it can really make a difference.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not about cutting things out, but being mindful
Right.
and making it work for you
Exactly.
and your goals.
Yeah.
Now, I know we talked about cooking methods a little bit earlier
Yeah.
and how, something like overcooking pasta can increase the GI.
That's right.
Are there other cooking methods that can impact GI that we should be aware of?
Well, I mean, think about it. Like if you're pureeing something, you're breaking it down, making it easier to digest. So that's going to raise the GI.
Mm.
But if you leave things whole or maybe chop them coarsely, that'll help keep the GI lower.
So it's not just what you're eating, it's also how you're preparing it.
Right, exactly.
That's really interesting. So it's like with all these nuances and understanding a little bit more about GI and fiber and portion size, we can really make informed choices to still enjoy a wide variety of foods, but keep our blood sugar balanced.
Exactly. I think it's more about giving people the power to choose, not restrict them.
I love that. This has been so insightful already. I think our listeners are going to really enjoy this deep dive.
Me too. We're just scratching the surface. We still need to get into specific meal planning strategies and talk about how all of this relates to managing diabetes.
Right. So much more to uncover. So stay tuned, everyone, for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll keep exploring all the ins and outs of GI and GL. And we're back for part 2 of our deep dive all about using the glycemic index and glycemic load. We were talking about fiber and our gut bacteria in the first part and how they can really impact how our bodies handle carbs.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, it's not just about what you eat.
Yeah.
It's a whole system.
It's just so complex.
So how can we actually use all this knowledge to plan meals? I mean, understanding GI in theory is great, but how do we put it into practice when life gets busy?
That's the big question, right? How do you actually use this? Well, I think a good way to approach it is to think about meals like building blocks.
Like building a stable blood sugar tower.
Okay, I like this. What are the building blocks?
So the foundation, you always want to start with those low GI foods. Things like whole grains,
Okay.
quinoa brown rice, legumes, lentils, chickpeas,
Yep.
non-starchy vegetables, most fruits. Those are all going to provide steady energy, and they're not going to cause those big blood sugar swings.
So that's like our base. What's next?
Right. And then you add protein and healthy fats. Those are like the mortar. They're going to hold that tower together.
I say.
Help slow down digestion and keep that blood sugar steady. So things like nuts, seeds, lean meats, fish, avocado, olive oil.
Yeah. This is making meal planning feel a little bit less daunting already. Like I can see how these different parts can fit together.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you want to have some higher GI foods, think of those as like the decorations on your tower. You can definitely enjoy those in moderation, but just pair them strategically with those lower GI base foods.
Right.
And that protein fat mortar. It keeps everything nice and balanced.
So if I were to have a meal with like brown rice, grilled chicken, and maybe some roasted vegetables, that'd be a pretty solid blood sugar tower.
You got it, exactly. And then maybe if you wanted to add a little something extra, you could have a slice of mango or a little bit of sweet potato.
That makes so much sense. What about when you're not at home cooking? Like let's say you're at a restaurant or a party
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
and you don't really have much control over what's being served.
It can be tricky, but you can still apply those same principles.
Okay.
At a restaurant, don't be afraid to ask questions, like how's the food prepared? What are the portion sizes like? Can you substitute something?
Right.
Maybe ask for things grilled or baked instead of fried.
So instead of assuming I can't have pasta, I could ask if it's al dente and if they could maybe swap a creamy sauce for a tomato-based one.
Exactly. And, if you're at a buffet or a party, start by filling your plate with those low GI foundation foods first. So salads, vegetables, lean protein.
Yeah.
And then you can see if you have room for anything else.
It's about making those informed choices without feeling like you're missing out.
You got it. That's the key. And don't forget about mindful eating. It can make a big difference. Slow down, enjoy each bite, pay attention to your hunger cues. That can help prevent overeating, which can really throw off your blood sugar.
Yeah, mindful eating is something I definitely need to work on. It's so easy to just inhale your food when you're busy.
Yeah, we've all been there. But even small things like taking a few deep breaths before you start eating or putting your fork down between bites, it all helps.
It's almost like bringing awareness back to the whole experience. It's not just mindlessly shoveling it in.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And, this is a journey. It's not like you have to be perfect all the time.
Right.
It's about finding what works for you.
Okay, so we've talked about strategies for meals and for navigating those social situations.
Right.
Now, what about GI and GL and how that relates to managing diabetes? I know that's something a lot of our listeners are really interested in.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about how understanding GI and GL can be particularly helpful for folks with diabetes.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive, and we're really zeroing in on how all of this ties in to managing diabetes.
Yeah, it's so important because if you're living with diabetes, understanding this stuff like the glycemic index and glycemic load, it can really make a difference.
I mean, it's more than just feeling good, right? It's about actually managing those blood sugar swings that can be really tough with diabetes.
Absolutely. It's
Wow.
about keeping things stable. You see, with diabetes, your body either doesn't make enough insulin or it can't use it effectively. And insulin, that's what helps get the sugar from your blood into your cells for energy.
Okay.
So when your blood sugar spikes after you eat something, especially those high GI foods, well, it can lead to hyperglycemia because that sugar is kind of stuck in the bloodstream.
And those spikes, I'm guessing they're a lot more intense and even dangerous for someone with diabetes than someone without it,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Over time, if your blood sugar is high all the time, it can actually damage your blood vessels.
Mm.
And that increases your risk for all sorts of complications. Heart disease, stroke, nerve damage.
So it makes a lot of sense that someone with diabetes would really want to prioritize those low GI foods.
Absolutely.
It's
Essential. By choosing foods that have a slower, more gentle effect on their blood sugar, they can really help keep those levels in a healthy range. And that can even mean needing less medication.
So all the things we've talked about, like pairing those carbs with protein and fat, being smart about portions, paying attention to how food is cooked, those are even more crucial for someone with diabetes.
They really are. It's about using all those tools to manage things effectively.
But diabetes management, it's so individual, right?
Yuck,
It's
doesn't it?
not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Right. What works for one person might not work for someone else. That's why it's so important to work closely with your doctor or a registered dietitian. They can help create a plan that's specifically for you.
So you can have your own personal guide to figuring out what to eat. Speaking of guidance, are there any specific resources or tools out there that might be extra helpful for people with diabetes?
Oh, yeah, totally. There's so much cool tech out there now. Like some glucose meters actually have GI and GL calculations built in. So they can tell you right away how the food you just ate is impacting your blood sugar.
Wow, that's amazing. So you could actually see what's happening in real time and make adjustments.
Yeah, it's about putting people in the driver's seat of their health.
I love that.
And there are apps, too, specifically for diabetes that can help you with meal planning. They take into account GI and GL, what you like to eat, any dietary restrictions you might have. It's pretty awesome.
It sounds like it. This deep dive has been a wild ride. I mean, we've gone so deep into how GI and GL can help us make smarter food choices, whether we're just trying to keep our energy stable or managing something like diabetes.
I've had a great time. I think it's so cool that we can learn all of this and then actually use it to feel better and live healthier lives.
Absolutely. As we wrap up, I just want to leave everyone with one last thought. Now that you have all this knowledge about GI and GL, what's one tiny change you can make at your next meal to put it all into practice?
Maybe you switch white rice for brown rice, or add some nuts to your yogurt.
Or even just take a minute to slow down and really enjoy your food.
That's a great one.
Be present with it.
It all adds up.
So keep learning, have fun experimenting in the kitchen, and keep on discovering the amazing connection between what you eat and how you feel. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive.